Okay, so let's go into the resource group. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, Yogesh, I can.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so let's create one resource group. So now agenda here is, okay, let's spin up the virtual machine and then we'll discuss into the diagram way. Okay. Server one, and the server one we are going to create under the East US 2K12R2. Okay, so this is the default network, and today we are going to focus on networking part. So we'll understand like how to design the network and how network works in the backend. Okay, we will discuss, we will understand in today's session. So this is a default network, and Microsoft is going to create one public IP network security group and one NHG as well. Okay, so this is the default thing. Let's go next. Disable. Let's review and create. Yeah. Okay. So let's go into the diagram. Now we are planning to deploy two virtual machines. So there are two virtual machines, right? And both virtual machines are having the network interface. So this is the NIC. This is the NIC. Okay. And both network cards, I mean both virtual machine, we are going to configure with the single network security group. So this is the NHG we are talking, and that NHG is getting configured with the two virtual machines. Okay. Now into the last session we have discussed like NHG. Incoming traffic. Into the last session we have discussed incoming traffic and outgoing traffic by using the NHG. So again today we'll understand like how we can block the internet for the specific server, or how we can block the internet for both servers. So we are trying to block here outgoing internet. Okay, outgoing internet. Deny. Okay, so now one virtual machine we have deployed, and we'll deploy one more virtual machine with the same energy. So let's go into the portal. Okay, so the virtual machine is getting deployed. Okay, and that particular virtual machine we are deployed with the one network security group, and this is the name of the network security group. See, server one hyphen energy is the network security group which Microsoft has created automatically. So let's deploy a one more virtual machine. The server 2. Same resource group. Server 2 East US, Windows Server 2K12 R2 data center. Okay. Now under the networking option, so the same network we are going to use. Okay, and again there is option where we can configure the energy. Okay, now in our scenario, energy not required, right? Or we need to select the existing network security group. Okay, so let's select the advanced. See, NIC network security group. Okay, so when you select the basic, under the basic, as a default architecture or default behavior, Microsoft is creating the new energy. But in our requirement, like we don't want a new network security group, right? We need an existing network security group. So let's go into the advanced, and under the advanced, we can select the existing energy, which is server one hyphen energy. Let's create a review. Let's go into the previous one.
Hello,
Hello.
sir. One energy two three virtual machine we configured with one energy.
Hmm.
That case that amount will be the same or any difference there?
Sorry. Yeah. So you're asking the billing, right? Billing of the virtual machine.
Yes.
So the billing you need to pay on a compute level. See, when you spin up the two virtual machines, then you need to pay for the two virtual machines. Okay. So energy is the only object, one object. Okay, and that object is getting connected with your network card. Okay. So you will not get any costing related difference. You have to pay for two virtual machines. You are spinning two VMs.
Okay. That means the individually VM apart from the VM machine,
Hmm.
other costing also is there. No? Each part having the payment.
Yeah, but there is no costing for the energy because this is a firewall things.
Okay.
Okay, which is getting created out of the virtual machine. Okay,
Okay.
so let's connect to the first virtual machine, which is my server one. And from server one, we'll take the RDP of server two. And what is the local IP address of server 2? 10.0.0.5. Okay, now let's check the internet. Okay, let me disable the internet security option. So now our requirement is we need to disable the, or we need to deny the outgoing internet. Okay, outgoing is nothing but it's from virtual machine to internet. Okay, internet is working. Now let's check into the another virtual machine. Internet is working. Okay, now let's go into the NHG, network security group. So as per diagram, like single NHG we have configured with the two virtual machines, right? So when you try to block internet, okay, means outgoing traffic towards internet, so by default it will deny the internet on all virtual machines, okay, where you have configured the NHG. But your requirement here is like out of two virtual machine, only the one virtual machine should not access the internet. So in that scenario, you need to specify the source, because when you block the internet, your source is nothing but your virtual machine and destination will be the internet. So let's go into the network security group part, NHG, which is configured on both virtual machines. So the same NHG, see, server1 hyphen NHG, server1 hyphen NHG. So let's go into the NHG, outbound rule, and let's add. Okay, so if you configure here source any, means it will block the internet on both virtual machines. So let's try with any first. Okay, destination will be the service tag, and under service tag you will get option as a internet. And which port you wanted to block? Outgoing port. I wanted to block all ports, means my virtual machine should not communicate with the internet with any ports. Okay, action will be the deny, and then internet deny. Okay, so into that particular rule we have not defined any source. Okay, let's refresh. See, this is the rule: outgoing internet deny, port all ports, all protocols with source is any. Any means the internet is getting block on all the virtual machines where you configure the particular network security group. Okay, let's try to access the internet now in both virtual machines. So this is my first machine. See, internet is not working. Another machine. Internet is not working. Okay, but now into the second scenario, my requirement here is like out of two virtual machine, like let's take a details of the server. So this is my server 1, this is the IP address. Go into the diagram. So this is the IP address, this is the IP address, right? This is my server 1. My server 2. So my requirement here is I wanted to block internet on only the first server. Okay, so in that scenario you need to define a particular source IP address, and let's go into the network security group, outbound. Now instead of any, we need to configure here that particular IP address. So let's change the source with the IP address 10.0.0.4 and let's save. Now you have configured the particular IP address under the source, and that virtual machine you have configured without internet now. See, if the particular virtual machine which is 0.4, you will not get any internet here. Okay, if you try to access the internet from that machine as a source, you will not able to interact with the internet. So let's go into the server. See, internet is not working. Into the another machine, internet is working. Now it's clear, Aditya?
Yes, Yogesh, pretty much clear.
Yeah. So you need
Thank
to
you.
try the same labs multiple times and then you will get the hands-on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me delete both virtual machines. Okay, so let's start with the new topic, which is networking. And under the networking, again, we are going to discuss a multiple important topics, okay, which is very important to design the infrastructure, to migrate the infrastructure, and to clear the interview as well. Because network is a backbone, okay, of the Microsoft Azure, or you can say is a backbone of your cloud system. So let's understand first how network works into the on-premises data center. So this is my physical on-prem data center. Okay, and into the data center, so mostly your data center is getting segregated with the multiple zones. Is the multiple zones. Okay, so this is my DMZ. This is my production. And this is my test environment. Okay, so before understanding the networking, first you need to understand a network, which network you are using into the your on premises. So Okay. So the one question from my side, okay, which network you are using into the on-premises? Do you have any idea which network you are using? Because most of the people are working into the on-premises infrastructure, right? So which network you are using? What is the internal network you are using?
Class C.
Why class C?
Because means we have a large number of IPs available in class C.
Okay, but instead of class C, you can have a large number of IP address. You will get into the class A and class B as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so let's try understand a network. So let's take up example like we are using. We'll take the multiple scenario. Okay, so this is the example from class C 192.168.0.0. What is 0.0? Any guess? Any idea?
Gateway.
So 0.0 is nothing but is a /16. Okay, so you are defining only the 8-bit and 8-bit, which is 192.168, and 0.0 means this is your actual. You can configure the subnetting, or you can have the subnetting with the help of your /16. Okay, so this is my broader network. My broader network, and that particular network needs to be segregated into the subnets. So this is the overall network. Okay, and that particular overall network we need to segregate, or we need to cut it down with the form of subnet. So like under the DMZ, multiple subnets we have configured from the same network. Let's see VLAN 1 to 168.1.0/24. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, the network, when we say 16 means around, you will get here 65,000 IP addresses you can configure, and those 65,000 IP addresses you are going to segregate into the subnets. So /24 is nothing but around, you will get 256 IP addresses you will get. You can have 256 servers, you can have 256 devices into that particular subnet. So now your network team is defining the network. Your network team is configuring the network and subnet. Okay, so this is the first subnet. Now second subnet, VLAN 192.168.2.0/24. This is my VLAN 2. VLAN 3. Is VLAN 4. Okay, so VLAN 1, VLAN 2, VLAN 3, VLAN 4, and from 5 to 10 again is reserved for the DMZ infrastructure. Let's go into the production. Now under the prod as well, you have configured the multiple VLANs. So VLAN 11, which is 11.0. VLAN 12, 12.0. VLAN 13, 13.0. VLAN 14, 0. And again this is the VLAN 15, and that particular VLANs means from 16 to 20 again is reserved for the production infrastructure. Let's go into the test now. Under the test zone, again you have configured the multiple VLANs. See VLAN 21, 22 VLAN, with the 22.0, VLAN 23, 24 and 25. Okay. So this is the infrastructure we have into the on-premises. Like we have a complete network, and that particular network is nothing but 192.168.0.0/16. So slash 16 is a broader network, and my network team has configured the multiple VLANs, okay, for the multiple infrastructures, and that particular infrastructure is getting segregated into the VLANs. Okay, now when you see here, there are three zones like DMZ zone, your production zone, and your test zone. So all the zones are getting configured with the internal physical firewall. So there is a firewall between DMZ and production. There is a firewall between production and test zone as well. So if you ask me, can we communicate between VLAN 1, VLAN 2, VLAN 3, VLAN 4? Yes, we can communicate with each other within the DMZ. But if you wanted to enable the communication between VLAN 1 to VLAN 11 or VLAN 12 to VLAN 1, so you need to raise a support ticket, or like you need to ask your firewall team to allow the particular traffic. So the next question from my side, so why the particular segregation is required? What is the requirement of the segregation? We can have a single network as well. Okay, we can have a single network without any firewall. So what is the benefit you will get when you divide your infrastructure with the multiple zones with the firewall? So any guess, any idea?
Yeah, this is something like the requirement coming from the organization or departments. We can segregate the department, internal department wise VLAN to restrict the access, to secure the data, and restrict the entries, like one user cannot access the other department's data like this.
Okay, but the one more question from my side: why people are configuring the VLANs? What is the use of VLAN?
To save the cost.
No, we by using the VLAN, what we can do, we can segregate
Management.
the network. Yeah, we can segregate the network, and again we can minimize the broadcasting. Okay, because when you design the network, okay, or when you deploy the infrastructure with the single network, so you will get the more broadcasting. So that broadcasting needs to be you need to have some a good network. So by using the multiple VLANs, you can minimize the broadcasting. Okay, so like you can plan under the DMZ, again you will get the multiple applications, right? So this is my database, this is my application subnet, this is my web subnet. Okay, with the same way, this is my database subnet, this is my application subnet, and this is my web subnet. This is my backup subnet. The same way, database subnet, this is application subnet, this is web subnet, and this is again my backup subnet. So if you wanted to enable the communication between production and test, or test and DMZ, again you need to allow the particular port, okay, into the firewall. So this is your physical firewall, this is your physical firewall. So by using a multiple firewalls, okay, in between a multiple zones, like you can secure your infrastructure. So mostly people are deploying internet facing servers under the DMZ, where all the people from outside, they're hitting on that particular web server, and that web server is getting communicate with the application or your database, which is getting deployed under the production infrastructure. So the particular network, okay, or particular traffic is getting allowed from web server to particular application server. So if your web server is communicating with the application server with some specific port, let's see 144 port. Okay, so 144 port is getting allowed into the firewall with the source and destination details. Like when you ask to open the complete range, so your security team will not allow a complete range. Okay, they will ask the specific source and destination IP address, and with the two-way communication they will enable between your web server and application server, and then you can communicate your infrastructure. Any question till any doubt related to the physical network which people are using into the on premises? Okay, so let's compare with the Microsoft Azure. Okay, so what Microsoft Azure is saying, Microsoft Azure is not supported with the VLAN concept. So there is a new service from Microsoft which is Azure VNet, and Azure VNet you need to segregate into the subnet. Azure VNet is a service where we can define logical grouping of the network. So the next question, why network is required? What is the use of network? So when you deploy the virtual machine on Microsoft platform, so like into the last scenario, we have deployed 2 virtual machines, right? So the internal network is required to communicate your infrastructure. Let's see, this is my VNet, okay, and subnet. So when you deploy the virtual machine, your virtual machine is getting connected with the VNet and subnet, and then your virtual machine can communicate with each other, because both virtual machines you have created under the single network. So your VNet service is a very important component from your infrastructure where you can communicate with your internal infrastructure. So there are multiple services where VNet is required. So without network service, you will not able to communicate your internal infrastructure within the Azure. So let's compare with the on-premises again. Let's go into the on-premises. Like let's take an example, like I have one physical server. On top of a physical server, like we have installed a hypervisor, which is my ESXi, VMware ESXi. This is my hardware. So let's see Dell ESXi, and like top up of ESXi, like you are creating the virtual machines. Top of ESXi, you are getting the virtual machine. So into the ESXi as well, like by default, VMware is creating some software networking. So this is the software network. This is the software switch here. And by using that software switch or virtual switch, you can communicate multiple virtual machines which is getting created on the ESXi. With the same way, Microsoft is offering here some Azure VNet service, and that particular VNet service we can use to communicate my infrastructure. Okay, so before deploying the VNets, before deploying the subnets, we'll understand which network range Microsoft is supporting. Okay, and we'll understand the architecture. So let me open the document. So go to VNet. Okay, so this is the supported ranges from the Microsoft, which Microsoft is saying yes, you can use those ranges to design your infrastructure. Class A, which is your 10 series, class B, which is your 172 series, and class C is your 192 series. Okay, so with this you can have here /16/16/16. Okay, you can use your /8 as well. where you will get a more IP addresses. So in our scenario, like we have used some 192 series, right? 192.168.0.0. So again, we have used here /16. So when you say 16, 65,000 IP addresses you will get, and the 65,000 IP addresses you are segregating with the multiple subnets. So this is a subnet is nothing but it's a group of IP addresses. Okay. So let's go into the another diagram. So let's take up example. I wanted to design my infrastructure. I wanted to deploy my Azure infrastructure, and for that I'm designing my network, because before migration or before deployment, first you need to design your network. So without networking, you will not able to deploy the infrastructure. So let's take up example. In my scenario is a very small customer, and that particular customer is asking to migrate some infrastructure from on-prem to cloud-prem, and that particular customer is asking to deploy the fresh infrastructure on Microsoft Azure. And for that, I'm going to deploy one VNet. Let's see, VNet 1, and that particular VNet I'm going to configure with the same range 192.168.0.0/24. And now that particular network, that particular VNet, I'm going to segregate with the multiple subnets, because I'm having a multiple infrastructures, application wise or zone wise. So I'm going to segregate my infrastructure now. Let's see, subnet 1. Let's production subnet, or we can say here DMZ subnet, which is 192.168.1.0/24. This is my production underscore, let's see, application server subnet, which is my 2.0. Again, I have created one more subnet, production underscore database, means all the database servers I'm going to create under that particular subnet, which is my 3.0. Let's have one more subnet. See, this is my test network, test net, which is 3.0, which is my 3.0. Let's see, 4.0. Okay, now a single network you have created, which is VNet 1 192.168.0.0/24, and the particular network is getting segregated with the multiple subnet. So 1.0, 2.0, 3. So 1.0 is specifically for the DMZ servers. 2.0 is just specifically for the application servers, which is coming and comes under the production. 3.0 for the databases, and 4.0 for the test servers. Now you are going to deploy an infrastructure under that particular network. Let's see, server 1, server 2, server 3, server 1, server 2, server 3. Again, you have created a multiple servers under that particular subnet. So we'll understand the default behavior which Microsoft is offering. So you can compare with other cloud system as well, like you can compare with the AWS. So you will get the same architecture with AWS as well. So when you define any VPC, so under the AWS you will get the VPC service. So VPC equal to VNet, both are same services. Okay, so VPC you will get under the AWS, VNet you will get under the Microsoft. Now what Microsoft is saying, what is the architecture of Microsoft? When you deploy the infrastructure, when you deploy the virtual machine under the single network with the multiple subnets, so all servers can communicate with each other. So your DMZ will communicate with the production, production will communicate with the production DB, and production DB can communicate with the your test subnet, and vice versa. So why? Because you have created a multiple subnet, and all the subnet is a part of your single network. That's why. So any question, any doubt till?
But if we want to block this access, can we block it?
Yes, we will discuss into the next scenario. Till clear
Okay.
or any question?
Yeah. Okay.
Any question till? Any doubt? Any question? It's very important. Okay, it's very, very important. Okay, so let's go into the next scenario. So now I have created one VNet, and under that VNet I have created a multiple subnets, and under the subnets again I have created multiple virtual machines. So we'll understand first subnet how it works. Okay, how it works. So this is my subnet. Let me create a box here. This is my subnet. This is my subnet. This is my subnet. This is my subnet. Okay, so as we discuss into the on-premises, right? So when you create any subnet, like around you will get 256 IP addresses. But now into the Microsoft Azure, what Azure is saying, when you create any subnet from that particular subnet, Microsoft is reserving the 5 IP addresses. So Azure is using 5 IP from. Okay, so we'll understand how, so why Microsoft is reserving those IP addresses. So 192.168.1.0, right, which is your first IP address, right? 192. What is your range? 192. 168. 1.255. See, this is the reservation. See, this is the reservation. See, this is the reservation. What is the 0.0? So 0 IP address Microsoft is reserving with the Microsoft and for the network address. First IP address, which is 1.1, which is reserved by Azure for the default gateway. So when you deploy any virtual machine under that particular subnet, your first IP address, your second IP address, which is .1, is assigning as a gateway. So here you will get 1.1 as a gateway, you will get here 2.1 as a gateway, 3.1 as a gateway, and 4.1 as a gateway. So from each subnet, Microsoft is reserving the 5 IP addresses. So first 4 and last 1. So .0 is network address, .1 is for the default gateway, and .2 and .3 Microsoft is reserving to map with your DNS infrastructure, because Microsoft is providing the DNS as well. So your .2 and .3 means 1.2, 1.3 is getting reserved for the internal DNS communication. And last IP address, which is 2.55, which is reserved for the broadcasting. Okay, and that particular IP is getting configured with the physical networking from Microsoft Azure. So what is the usable IP now? The usable IP from that particular range, 192.168. 1.4 is the first IP address you will get for 192.168. 1.254 is the last IP addresses. So what about the usable IP? You will get only 251 IP and use if we create a subnet with /24. Okay, so the one more point here, which is very important, why we are going to configure /24. What is the reason? Because I'm going to deploy a 250 servers under that particular subnet. That's why. So my requirement here is 250 servers. I wanted to deploy under the DMZ. That's why I'm going to configure /24. But in second scenario, I'm not going to deploy a 250 servers. So we can have some smaller network as well, which is /26 or /27. So the particular funda is it remains same for all the subnets when you configure /24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. So in all subnets, Microsoft will reserve the first 4 IP address and last one IP address. Any question till, any doubt till? Any doubt, any question? It's very important to understand the concept. Vishnu, any question, any doubt? Irfan, any question?
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, you said that reservation IP, the first
Yes.
5 IP going to reserved. There
No,
are
first
two and
four. No, first 4 and last one.
first 4 and last one.
Yes.
Can you show that screen?
Yeah, sure. See, .0, .1, .2, .3, and this is the last IP address, which is .254.
Yeah, right. First 4. And that 2 and 3 that reserved by our side or Azure itself they take consider.
No,
as a reserve.
Microsoft. Yeah. Microsoft will reserve those IP address at Microsoft end only. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we are going to assign some any system that.
Yeah, if you wanted to assign a static IP to any device at your end, then you need to use the IP address between .4 to .254.
254. Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise, we are trying to assign, then it not going to accept.
Right. If you assign .1, .2, it will not accept. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Thank you.
Any question till? Any doubt? Any question till? Irfan, any question from your side? Vishnu, any question?
Basically, you are saying that if you that 2 yeah, or 3 is the DNS, which is Azure DNS, if you want to use, right?
Right. No. Azure DNS means, see, Microsoft is not offering a local DNS. Microsoft is offering every time a public DNS. So .2 and .3 is getting mapped to your public DNS, and then Microsoft is providing the public DNS.
So, this is my internal subnet, right?
Right.
So I will have my own internal DNS server.
Right.
So I will, other than 2 or 3, I will take some other IP. For example, I'll take 10 IP. Okay.
Right.
Dot 10.
Right.
So then the .2.3, which is reserved for that would be the public DNS IP, right?
Yes. So see, what you need to do as a best practice. Okay, I agree. Like we need a DNS. I'm talking especially on internal DNS. Okay, which is my private DNS. So what you need to do? Okay, let me explain into the another diagram. Then you will get the idea. Just give me 1 minute. So this is the diagram I wanted to use. This is very basic infrastructure. Okay, this is very basic design. Okay, into the next lectures, okay, we'll understand the expected design, okay, which Microsoft is expecting to design. Okay, so let's take an example. Your Active Directory server you created under the production subnet. So this is your AD and DNS. AD with DNS. And this is the first server from that particular subnet, and Microsoft is providing here 192.168.2.4 IP address. So one more point I wanted to highlight here. So Microsoft is configuring the DSCP as well at the subnet level at a Microsoft end. That's why Microsoft is saying like you cannot have your own DSCP server. If you ask me, can we configure our own DSCP server into the Azure infrastructure? No, Microsoft is not allowing that. So Microsoft is configuring the DSCP at Microsoft end at a subnet level, and by using a DSCP, Microsoft will offer one IP address from 2.4 range, which sorry, to 2.0 range, which is first IP will be the 2.4. Now, once you configure the Active Directory and DNS here, your requirement here is the 2.4 DNS needs to be configured with all the systems where your machine will communicate with the DNS, right? So what option you need to configure? You need to configure the internal DNS on subnet level. There is option, I will show you. So we need to configure local DNS on subnet level. Okay, let me show you that option. Okay, so when you configure the DNS on subnet level, automatically virtual machine will pull that particular setting from the subnet. If you configure the DNS as a 192.168.2.4, which is my DNS, so that particular DNS is getting inherited with all the virtual machines. It will get inherited with all the virtual machine. It will get inherited with all the virtual machine. It will get inherited with all the virtual machines. Okay, so let me create a one VNet and subnet, and then you will get the idea. Okay, so let's go into the resource group, create a first resource group. Let's see, this is my DC 400 East US. Refresh. Okay, let's go into the home and create a one virtual network. DC 400 virtual network. Let's see, VNet hyphen IBM. Okay, East US. Next. Okay, see, this is the IP range. This is the network range which Microsoft is saying yes, you can create it, but I don't want that range, right? I need my own range, 192.168.0.0/16. Okay, 0.0/16. So under that particular range, we need to create a multiple subnets. So let's create a subnet. So the /16 network, I'm going to break with the multiple subnets. Okay, so let's see which naming convention we have used into the diagram. Okay, DMZ underscore subnet, right? So DMZ underscore subnet, and now I'm going to use 192.168.1.0/24. So when you say 24, see, Microsoft is saying you can use from 1.0 to 1.255. 251 is a usable IP, and plus 5 IP addresses Microsoft Azure will reserve. Okay, and what is the usable IP here? 251. So why we are using /24? Because my requirement here is 250 servers. I wanted to deploy under the DMZ. But into the another scenario, I don't want to deploy 250 servers. Okay, so in that scenario, I can have a small subnet as well with /26. When you say 26, again usable IP will be the 59 plus 5 IP addresses Microsoft will reserve at Microsoft end. So when you create any subnet, okay, larger subnet or smaller subnet, from that particular subnet, Microsoft will reserve the 5 IP addresses. So what is the smaller subnet? /29 is a smaller subnet. See, 3 usable IPs you will get plus 5 IP addresses Microsoft will reserve. So this is the smallest subnet, okay, you can create under the Microsoft Azure. So let's create /24. Add, and we can have a multiple subnet, and multiple subnets can be created later as well. Okay, so those security part we will discuss into the networking only. What is bastion host, what is DDoS, and what is firewall into the next sessions. Let's create it. Okay, so the VNet is getting created. Let's go into the VNet. Okay, so this is my VNet. VNet we have created with the 192.168.0.0/16, and that particular thing is nothing but your address space. See, you will get here address space, and you can change your address space as well. See, what is the count of the IP addresses under that network? 65,536 is a IP addresses you will get, and those 65,000 IP addresses you are going to segregate with the help of subnets. So subnet is nothing but it's a chunk of IP addresses. It's a group of IP addresses. Okay, now you will get option as a subnet, and you have created the one subnet which is 1.0, and let's create a multiple subnet as per requirement. So this is my production prod underscore application subnet, which is 2.0. So when you configure 1.0, see the subnet address prefix overlap with the particular subnet, so which already we have used, right? So 2.0, save.
So that was showing their overlap. That means the
overlapping means
create...
you cannot use it existing network because already you have created the subnet, right? Yeah, that's why. So let's create here one more subnet as per our diagram. Production, let's see DB and 3.0. Okay, now we have 3 subnets. Okay, so what we'll do for the more understanding, we'll create a one virtual machine under the DMG subnet, and then we'll focus on the DNS part first. Okay, and then we'll discuss next concepts. Okay, so let's go into the virtual machine and create one DMG server. Okay, so existing resource group, let's see DMZ1, 2K12R2, B2S. Okay, now important part is our networking, because we have designed our network. So this is the network which we have created, right? VNet-IBM, and under that VNet we have created the multiple subnets. My DMG subnet, my production application subnet, and production database subnet. So I wanted to deploy a machine under the DMG. Let's take the default one, symbol, and create it. Okay, so the virtual machine is getting created, and now we'll understand the DNS which Microsoft is offering, and we'll discuss how we can change that particular infrastructure. Okay, so let me connect to the virtual machine first. admin 100. Let's go into the command line. ipconfig/all. Okay. See, this is the IP address of your server, IPv4, okay, and 1.4. As we discussed, this is the first IP address. When you deploy second virtual machine, you will get the 1.5. Third virtual machine 1.6. The sequentially IP address Microsoft will allow or allocate into your infrastructure. This is the gateway 1.1 as we discussed. 1.1 is a result, and now this is the DNS server. Okay, let's go into the DNS one. See, this is the DNS server 168.63.129.16. Now I wanted to highlight here one more point. So the virtual machine, that particular DNS is taking from the VNet. So let's go into the diagram. Let's use the existing one. Okay, so now we have created one virtual machine, which is my DMZ1 VM, and we can see here one DNS. What is the DNS IP address here? 168.63.129. 168.63.129.16. Okay, so the particular DNS, it's coming from the VNet. Okay, now what is the default behavior of the virtual machine? Let's go into the virtual machines option. Under the networking, under the network interface, you will get the DNS, virtual machine DNS. See, DNS server. And what is the setting? Is configured inherited from the virtual network. Means the particular DNS IP we are getting from the VNet, right? And now let's go into the VNet service. Go to the VNet. Go to VNet IBM, and again under the VNet you will get the same option as a DNS. DNS servers. See, what is the option? Default Azure provided, and that's why you are getting a default DNS. So when you configure your DNS into the VNet level, so as per diagram, what is the DNS I need here? Let's go with our diagram. So 192.168.2.4 is my DNS server, right? 192.168.2.4 is my DNS server. Okay, let's save. And now you can join your virtual machine into the domain, because how to configure the DNS. Okay, without DNS your infrastructure will not work. So Irfan, any question, any doubt till? And let me reboot the server, or let me try with the renew ipconfig/.
Yeah, doubt cleared. From that virtual network, we can define our own individual DNS.
Yes. Okay, so let me check if we can have our DNS server 192.168. So Microsoft is not recommending to use a local network setting to change the network. If you see under the network details, you will not get anything. Okay, you can see the IP address you're getting from the DSCP, right? See, you will not get here anything. So recommendation here is don't touch, okay, to your network interface or network setting. The complete configuration you need to do from the portal only. Okay, so let's cancel, and now we can say this is my internal DNS as per the details. See, 2.4. So what you can do, you can spin up a one more virtual machine under the production app subnet, and you can deploy a Active Directory role, and then you can have the DNS. And once it is configured the DNS on all the subnets, your virtual machines can be a join with your Active Directory. VMs can be a join here. Now it's clear, or any question?
Yogesh, I have a question related to DSCP actually. As you said,
Yes.
we cannot configure the DSCP. We only Microsoft can configure the DSCP directly.
Right.
So
Right.
in that case, can we? I mean, we have any access to the DSCP server
No.
to
No.
reserve some IPs or?
No. What you need to do, if you wanted to use your own IP address, or if you wanted to use your, if you wanted to use a static IP address, you need to configure the IP address as a in a static way. So let's go into the virtual machine. Let me show you. So go to the virtual machine which we have created, and go to the networking. So what is the IP address of our virtual machine, which Microsoft is offering? 1.4, 192.168.1.4. So let's go into the networking, and let's go into the network interface. Okay, and go to the IP configuration option. And what is the IP detail here? Dynamic. So there are multiple features or roles we can say, or multiple applications where we need a static IP. Like you can take the example of your Active Directory only. So if you try to install Active Directory here, like it will give the warning because your virtual machine having the DHCP IP address. So if you wanted to deploy a Active Directory on the server, the IP should be a static. Okay, so don't configure the static IP inside the virtual machine or at a OS level. So this is not recommended way. What you can do, you can go ahead here and you can do the static one. But the one more requirement, I don't want to use 1.4. I wanted to use 1.100. I wanted to use 1.100. Yes, save. I can use it. So with the same way, when you update any IP address at your end, Microsoft will reserve that IP address into the Microsoft DHCP server in the backend. Now it's clear?
Sir, but
Yes.
some
So that means that IP will not assign to any other systems.
Exactly. Yes, 1.100 IP Microsoft will not assign under that particular range.
Okay.
but sir, sometime we required reserve a range 100 to 200. We're assigned that range for specific server.
Right.
So
So if you wanted to use some range, then you need to use the static IP only. So there is no option like 1.1, let's see 1.10 to 1.20 you can reserve.
okay.
Okay, let me take the RDP of the virtual machine because we have changed the IP address, right? So let's take the RDP. Go to the overview. So networking is a very important. Without networking, you will not able to crack the interview. I'm trying to focus all the components, okay, which is comes under networking with in-depth. Let's go into the command line, CMD. IP config. See 1.100 IP address. Okay, So what we'll do, we'll take a break, 15-minute break, and then we'll continue with the next points. Okay, we'll discuss the multiple scenario and multiple options. Any question till Irfan? Any question?
Sir, how can we network related part or before installing any VMware, we are creating one blueprint. Might be company creating blueprint of how we are going to plan. So how they using and what kind of tool they are using for that blueprint?
See, for the blueprint, see, there are multiple ways to design the blueprint. So now normally we are using the Visio only to design the infrastructure, okay, to do the designing. So before that, what you need to do, you need to understand first the on-premises infrastructure network. So let's take an example, like you have the existing customer and that customer having the physical data center and they're asking to extend their data center into the Microsoft Azure. So the very basic rule, okay, you need to understand your IP should not overlap with the on-prem IP addresses. Let's take a small example and then we'll take a break. Okay. So go to one more diagram. See, this is your on-premises data center and you're trying to extend a same data center with the Microsoft Azure. Right. So we'll discuss with the very broader way. Okay. So this is the firewall, okay, which is configured with the on-premises data center. Any firewall, Palo Alto, FortiGate, any firewall, right? And now your network team has designed here a network with, let's see, 172.20.0.0/16. So this is the broader network I'm talking. Okay. So that particular network your team has created, and again you have created some subnets. Let's see subnet 1. Subnet 1, which is 172.21.0/24. The same way you have created the multiple subnets. Subnet 2, which is 2.0. Okay. So recommended way, what is the recommended way? You should not use the particular network. You can have some different network. Like for example, 172.21.0/16. And then you can have your own subnetting, which we have discussed. Subnet 1 21.1. Subnet 2 21.2. Now it's clear. So your IP should not overlap. Okay. So first you need to understand the existing network and then you need to design your Azure infrastructure. Is clear or any question?
Okay, sir, clear.
Okay. Okay, now let's take a break and we'll back in 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, so can we start? Can we start?
Yes, I think we can go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go into our diagram. Like we have designed one VNet, and that particular VNet we have segregated with the multiple subnet. Again, we have deployed one virtual machine as well under the DMZ subnet, and let's deploy one more virtual machine under the production subnet, and we'll understand how we can block the communication. Okay, so let me deploy one more virtual machine. Go to, let's create a one more resource group with the same location, or we can use the same resource group, which is DC 400. Okay, but your subnet should be a different. See, prod server, prod app server, prod app server, Windows 2K12. Next, and now under the networking, I'm going to select the same network and different subnet, which is product prod app subnet. Okay, now we have deployed one more virtual machine. Okay, so this is the virtual machine, and see Microsoft has allocated 2.4 IP address, and let me try to ping that IP address from the DMZ server. Ping, paste, see ping, we can ping it, right? Okay, now what is the requirement here? As per diagram, as we discuss, so all subnet can communicate with each other, right? DMZ will talk my production will communicate with the DB, and DB will communicate with the test as well. So my requirement here is I wanted to block a DMZ VNet, okay, with the production app server VNet. Means my DMZ VNet my DMZ subnet should not communicate with the prod app subnet. This is my requirement. Okay. So what we need to do, if you remember, into the last week, we have discussed how to configure NSG on VM level, right? But now today we are going to understand how to configure NSG on subnet level. So when you configure the NSG on subnet level, it will inherit it with all the virtual machine. So when you configure the NSG on subnet level, and if you say yes, that particular IP or that particular range should be a block, so your virtual machine will take the same settings from the your subnet, and your subnet is getting configured with the NSG. So let's understand how we can create a NSG and how we can configure with the virtual machine. So what we'll do, we'll create a two NSG. So first NSG will create with the create for the virtual machine, and we'll create a one more NSG for the production app subnet. Okay, so under the DMZ subnet, we'll apply that particular network security group, and one more NSG we can create and we'll apply to that particular production application subnet. So let's go into the portal and let's create first two NSGs. Go to network security group. So these two network security groups are created automatically. So this is the first NSG for first VM, and this is the NSG for the production virtual machine. So add same resource group, see DMZ hyphen subnet, because that particular NSG we are going to allow on subnet level or configure on subnet level, subnet hyphen NSG. Let's create it. Okay, so let's create a one more NSG. Go to home, network security group, add one more NSG. On that NSG, we're going to deploy for the or application subnet. Okay, now let's go into the network security group which we have created. Now we have created two NSGs, right? So this is my DMZ subnet, and we'll configure that particular NSG with the subnet level. So we are not configure anything into the incoming and outgoing. So first we'll configure the subnet. So associate with VNet and DMZ subnet. And now let's go into the diagram. So what we'll do here, under the DMZ subnet, already we have configured one NSG, and inside the NSG we'll configure the rule. So we'll configure the rule for incoming. So which rule we need to configure? The incoming traffic from 2.0. Incoming traffic from 192.168.2.0/24 need to deny. First rule you need to define. What is the second rule? You need to define outgoing traffic. Outgoing traffic to which network? Sorry, which subnet? 192.168.2.0/24 need to deny. And same rule set you need to configure on your production subnet as well, means production NSG as well. Okay, so incoming traffic from 1.0, outgoing traffic for 2.0. Okay, so let's go into the NSG. Now this is the NSG which we have created for the DMZ, incoming traffic. So incoming traffic from which network? 192.168.2.0. Add. So source all means any and destination will be the virtual network, or we can say destination will be the IP address, and here we can configure the range 192.168.2.0/24 deny with all ports. Okay, say add. So source any and destination 2.0 means if your servers are trying to hit to 2.0 range, it will deny. Okay, a same rule you need to configure for the outgoing traffic. So this is the incoming traffic. Okay, let me check once. Okay, sorry, your source should be a 2.0 here. Sorry, we need to reconfigure it. IP configured 2.0 and destination any. Okay, which is deny. And for outgoing traffic, destination will be the complete range, deny, add. Just a minute. Okay, so let's go into the server and let's try to hit. Okay, now it is able to ping. Okay, can we try mstsc 2.4? Okay, it will take some time to apply the network. So any question till any doubt? And same, we need to configure on another subnet as well. So let's try to configure the another NHG with the another subnet. It's my application subnet. Okay. So incoming source, which is 1.0, destination any, all ports, and it should deny. Outgoing port, outgoing rule, destination, one dot zero, all ports, deny. Any question till any doubt here? See. Any question, any doubt? Irfan, any question from your side? Vishnu, any question, any doubt? Aditya, any question? Amol,
No, Yogesh.
any doubt, any question? Atul, any question from your side? So it's very important. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll understand one more concept and then we'll stop for the day. Okay, so for that I need to delete the infrastructure. Okay, so now today we have discussed how to create a VNet, how to create a subnet, and how to configure the NHG on subnet level. And now one more point, one more topic we are going to discuss, which is VNet peering. Okay, so let me delete the complete infrastructure and we'll understand the theory first and then we'll deploy the lab. Okay, now into the first scenario, we have discussed only the one VNet, and your one VNet is configured with the multiple subnets, right? DMZ, your production app, your production DB, and your test subnet. But into the my second scenario, I wanted to deploy or design the infrastructure for the small customer. Okay, and that customer does having only the 15 or 20 or let's see 100 servers. Okay, and that particular infrastructure the customer is asking with the multiple networks, multiple VNets. So how we can design that infrastructure? So let's understand and how we can communicate with each other.
Yogesh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I just have one query.
Yeah.
So, like as we have seen that by default, Microsoft gives internet access on the VMs, right?
Right, right.
So like you give an internal IP to the DNS servers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So giving an internal IP to the DNS server,
Mm-hmm.
so it will have a internet access, right?
Yes, yes. So we'll explain, okay, why you are getting the IP address after configuring the local DNS as well. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, so we'll discuss here only. Okay, now let's take up example. You configure the 2.4 as a DNS, 2.4 as a DNS, 2.4 as a DNS for all the subnets, and your virtual machines are getting the DNS as a 2.4, right? So your internet is getting from the gateway level. Okay, so Microsoft is providing the internet on a gateway level. Gateway level. Okay, so what is the gateway of our virtual machine? For example, 192.168. Let's see, 2.4 is the gateway. Okay, and here, sorry, 2.1 is the gateway. 3.1 is the gateway. And 4.1 is the gateway here. Okay, here 4.1, and here again 1.1 is the gateway. Okay, so your question is very valid, Irfan. So let's take up example. If you wanted to have some permission, or if you wanted to have some block internet, okay, so in that scenario you need to change your gateway of the infrastructure, and by default Microsoft is configuring the system routing. So this is the system route. So what you need to do, you need to configure the UDR option, UDR, which is user defined route. User defined route. Okay, so into the user defined route you need to configure the UDR, and that UDR again needs to be configured on subnet level. UDR need to be configured on net level. So into the UDR you need to define what will be your next hop. So if you define next hop as a firewall, so all the traffic will get routed into your firewall, and into the firewall then you can define the internet policies. Okay, when you compare with on-prem infrastructure, right? So you're getting the internet via firewall or via proxy, right? With the filtered way. With the same way you can configure with the Microsoft Azure as well. So probably next week we will discuss a firewall concept, and then you will get the idea like how we can divert all the traffic from 1.1, means from the default gateway to user defined gateway, user defined route. Now it's clear, Irfan?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go into the another diagram. Okay, now into the first scenario we have discussed with the single VNet. Now we are going to deploy the infrastructure with the two VNets. Let's see, VNet 1, and that VNet 1 we are going to configure as a TMZ, and one more VNet we are going to configure, VNet 2. Let's see, production. Okay, so VNet 1 I'm going to configure with 192.168.1.0/24, and here 2.0/24. So into the first scenario we have configured the larger network, But now into the second scenario, I'm taking the very smaller network, which is /24, because my requirement is only 200 servers. Okay, so I'm going to create a 2 VNets. Okay, and during the subnet deployment, I'm going to use the same range as a subnet as well. Means I don't want to break that particular network. When you compare with the first scenario, into the first scenario, we have used 0.0, 192.168.0.0, okay, /16. Sorry, it should 16 here. It should 16 here, not 24. Okay, and the 16 we have segregated. Okay, we have created the multiple chunks, we have created the multiple subnets. But into the second scenario, I don't want to create a multiple subnet. I wanted to create only the single subnet. Single VNet, single subnet, single VNet, single subnet. So I need to configure here same subnet. Subnet 192.168.1.0/24 only. If you wanted to break, you can break with /26, 27, 28, 29. Okay, if you have requirement. So again, okay. Now the first VNet I am going to configure into the East US. And second VNet I'm going to configure into the West US. We will understand how we can communicate two VNets which is getting created in a single subscription. So now we have a single subscription, right? Single account, single subscription. And under that subscription, we have created two VNets. VNet 1 under the East US, VNet 2 under the West US. And we'll understand how we can communicate two different VNet from two different locations. So we are going to discuss a VNet peerings option, VNet peering. VNet peering. Okay, so let's deploy two VNet first, and let's deploy two virtual machines. So we are going to deploy two virtual machines as well. Okay, now go to home. Let's create a two resource group. Let's see DC 100 under the East US. DC 200 under the West US. West US. So let's go into the VNet part. Let's design the network. So DC 100 VNet name DC 100-VNet under East US 192.168.1.0/24, and same 1.0 I wanted to define as a subnet as well. Or you can break as well. Let's see, I wanted to create a smaller subnet which is comes under /24, which is, let's say, 26. See, a 59, 59, 59, you can create a multiple subnets, but I don't want to break, so I'm using as the same one. Created. Let's create a one more VNet. This comes under US to West US 192.168.2.0/24. 2.0/24. Let's create it. Okay, now we have two VNets, okay, as we discussed into the diagram, East US and West US, VNet 1, okay, which is created under the East US, VNet 2 we have created under the your West US, okay, and now let's deploy the two virtual machine under two VNets. Go to the virtual machine and then we'll understand what is VNet peering, how it works, and in which scenario we need to use the VNet peering. So let's go into the virtual machine option. So DC100 server. Admin 100. DC VNet. This is the subnet which we have created. This is a subnet which we have created. Let's create it. Okay, let's deploy one more virtual machine into the another VNet. So this is the DC100 virtual machine we have deployed, right? Go to the virtual machine. DC200. DC 200 hyphen VNet. Okay, so let's go into the diagram. Okay, now if you see here, you can see the same range. Okay, we are using the same range. We are using the same network 192.168.1.0, 192.168.2.0. But why it will not communicate? What is the reason? The reason here is we have created two different VNet. That's why it will not communicate. It's a separate network. It's a separate network. So your two VNets you can have with the same location, or you can have into the different location as well. So what you need to do today as a lab, let's create a two VNet with the same location first, and then you can try with the same lab with the different location. Okay, so when you create a VNet, that particular network you can communicate. Okay, let's take a earlier scenario. We have created one network 192.168.1.0.0/16, and under that we have created the multiple subnets. So it will communicate with each other because all the subnet is a part of your single network. But into the second scenario, we have only a single subnet under the VNet. We have only the single subnet under the VNet. So it will not communicate with each other because this is a separate VNet. This is a separate VNet. This is a logical boundary, we can say. So Microsoft is creating a logical boundary, okay, on a VNet level. You cannot communicate with the different network. If you wanted to communicate that network with the another VNet, then VNet peering needs to be created. So when you create a VNet peer, Microsoft is updating the routing table in the backend. Okay, so Microsoft will create one route table, and again this is a system route table. And Microsoft will configure the route table with all the details like 192.168.1.0/24 should be a communicate with 192.168.2.0/24 and vice versa. So Microsoft will update the routing table in the backend, and by using that routing table, your two networks will communicate. Okay, so let's understand one more scenario where we need a VNet peering. See, this is my landscape. This is my blueprint of the Azure infrastructure. Now we are building it. So as a best practice, we should have a multiple VNets with the multiple infrastructures. So this is the first VNet, and that particular VNet is the responsible for the firewall. So next week we will discuss what is firewall and how to configure. But let's understand and assume you have the DMZ VNet, and under that VNet you configure the firewall. So again you have created one more VNet, which is my DMZ VNet, we can say, for the DMZ application. So we can change the naming convention. Let's see, this is my firewall VNet. Okay, so this is my DMZ VNet. Okay, this is my production VNet. And see, this is my test VNet. It's a very simple and small example. Okay, this is my test VNet. Okay, now in that scenario you need to create a peering. So this is the first peering, firewall VNet to DMZ VNet, firewall VNet to production VNet, and firewall VNet to test VNet, and vice versa. Means your DMZ will communicate with the firewall. Your firewall will communicate with the DMZ network. Your production will communicate with the firewall, and firewall will communicate with the production. Your test will communicate with the firewall, and firewall will communicate with the test by using the VNet peering. Using the VNet peering. Using the VNet peering. So this is the VNet peering. VNet peering. And this is the VNet peering. Okay, now the next question, we are not created any peering between DMZ, between production, and between your test VNet directly. So if you ask, can we communicate a DMZ VNet to production VNet? No, there is no connection, direct connection between two VNets, and that's why it will not communicate with each other. If you wanted to enable the communication between DMZ and production, now again there are two ways. Okay, the first way, you can create a peer between two VNet, and which is not recommended at all. Okay, so you need to communicate two VNets by using the firewall. So prod will communicate with the DMZ by using the firewall, and this is the hub and spoke design which Microsoft is asking to deploy. Hub and spoke network. Okay, so this is the hub and spoke architecture. So your firewall VNet is acting as a hub VNet, and your DMZ VNet is acting as a spoke 1, 2, and spoke 3. Now any question till? So that particular scenario we are going to deploy next week. We'll discuss how we can deploy the firewall, how we can have the multiple VNets, how we can, again next week also we are going to configure the peering between the multiple networks. So peering is a very required optional component. You should aware how it works and how to configure it. Any question till? Any doubt till? Irfan, any question?
Peering will come when you have a different VNets, right?
Yes, yes. If you're different VNet, then you need to configure the peering if you wanted to do the communication between two networks in that scenario.
So for subnet, if you have a broad subnet, and inside that you create a subset of subnets. So in that case also, do we require, or
no,
it's not required for that?
No, let me explain. So again, you're asking very logical question. So let's go into the one more diagram. See, now into the first scenario, into the second scenario, we have discussed very small network where we have not created a multiple subnets. But let's take a one more scenario. This is my 192.168.0.0/16 VNet network. And I have one more VNet 172, because you use the complete block here, so you cannot use the same network. Okay, 172.20.0.0/16. Again, this is the VNet. This is the complete network. Okay, now that particular VNet you have segregated with the multiple subnets. So subnet 1, subnet 2, and subnet 3. Subnet 1, subnet 2, and subnet 3. Okay, so subnet 1 192.168.1.0/24. Subnet 2 2.0/24. Subnet 3, which is 3.0/24. Okay, same thing here. Subnet 1 172.20.1.0/24. Subnet 2 2.0 and subnet 3 which is 3.0. Okay, so when you talk on a VNet peering part, so VNet peering you are going to configure at the VNet level. Okay, so the VNet level you are going to configure the peering. Okay, so when you configure the peering at a VNet level, automatically all subnets will communicate with your other subnets, because at the top level means, let's take a one more example. This is your parent and this is your child. This is your child. This is your child. This is your child. This is your child and this is your parent. So you are going to configure the VNet peering at a parent level. So once you configure the peering with the parent level, all the child will communicate with each other. So again, you need to apply the same funda which already we have discussed. If you wanted to block the communication from subnet 1, means subnet 1 which is created under the first VNet, and you want, your requirement is your subnet 1 should not communicate. The same thing you need to do, you need to configure the NHG on subnet level. Sorry. So let's go here. We need to configure NHG on subnet level to block the traffic. To block the traffic. Now is clear, Irfan? Any question till? Okay, so let's go into the R scenario which we have deployed. Okay, so go to the virtual machine here, and now we have two virtual machines. We have two virtual machines, DC1. Okay, and let me log in into the DC1.
Sorry, Yogesh, could you repeat that NSG point?
Yes, yes. See, this is the scenario, right? We have two network, VNet 1, VNet 2, right? And again, we have created a multiple subnets under the first VNet. We have created a multiple subnet under the second VNet. So when you configure the VNet peering, okay, between two network or between multiple network, a default behavior is all the subnet will communicate with each other where you configure the peering. Okay, so this is the second point. Now into the third point, you have created a peering. So subnet 1 will communicate with all subnet, subnet 2 will communicate with all subnet, subnet 3 will communicate with all subnets, vice versa. Again, subnet 1 from your different VNet will communicate with all the subnets. But your requirement is you wanted to block the communication between subnet 1 and subnet 1. So the same thing you need to do which we have discussed. You need to configure the NHG on subnet level, and you can block the incoming traffic which is coming from 172.21.0, and again you need to configure the NHG at subnet 1 level as well, and you need to configure the one more rule, and you need to block the traffic, and that particular traffic is coming from 192.168.1.0, and then your two subnets will not communicate with each other. It will not communicate because you have created the energy rule, okay, top up of the subnet level. Now it's clear, Irfan?
Yeah, clear. Thank you.
Yogesh,
Yeah.
what if two subnets will have a same IP address? I mean, same IP address range?
It will not take at all. It will not allow to create a same, or it will not allow to configure the same subnet range with the multiple subnet. It will not allow. You can try.
No, I mean, if we create one VNet in East US and second VNet is in the West US, suppose, with the same IP address range.
Yes,
Right now,
yes. See,
there is no VNet pairing, so we
yeah.
can configure it,
See,
right?
yeah. See.
But at the time of
Let me,
VNet pairing,
yeah. Let me explain.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
That scenario also. Let me explain. I got your question.
okay.
So let me copy. Okay. So this is the scenario, and that particular scenario, let's take an example. Your first VNet is getting created into the East US, and your second VNet also you created into the East US. Okay, this is the scenario. Now, into the next scenario, sorry. Into the next scenario, let's assume your second VNet is not created in a same location. Your second VNet is created under a West US. West US, and you have a same VNet and same subnet. Your same VNet and same subnet. So you can use a same range into the different regions. I agree. Okay, Microsoft will accept it. Okay, but when you create a peering between two network, it will not allow. It will give the warning with the overlapping, because you are the same network. You're the same network. You're the same subnet and same subnet. Now got the point?
Yeah, that's why I'm just
Yes.
worried about
Yeah.
how it's possible.
Yeah. You cannot create a peering in that scenario. You can use the same IP range with the different region, but it will overlap. Okay. You cannot create a peering.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So let's go into our lab now. So this is the scenario which we are discussing, right? So we have created one virtual machine, DC 100. We have created one more virtual machine, DC 200. Okay. Now, so I have logged in into the first virtual machine. Command line ipconfig 1.4. Okay, and let's check the IP address of your another machine, which is DC 200 2.4. Let's ping 2.4 test. Okay, now we are not able to ping because there are two different VNets at all. Okay, now let's go to the VNet and we'll understand how we can configure the VNet peering. Go to the VNet. Okay, so this is the VNet 100 and this is the VNet 200, right? We have two VNets. Like you can initiate a VNet peering from any VNet. Automatically, Microsoft will create a required peering connection. So like we need a two VNet connection, right? VNet peering connection, 100 to 200 and 200 to 100. So when you initiate the peering connection from 100, automatically it will create a two connection, 100 to 200 and 200 to 100. So let's go into the DC 100 VNet, and under that you will get option as a peering. See, there is no connection getting created, right? Under the another VNet, go to the peering, there is no VNet connection is created. Now let's go into the VNet 100. Add, and you can configure your name VNet 100 to VNet 200, right? So traffic to remote virtual network, that particular option we will discuss. Sorry, the first option is related to the VNet peering enabling or disabling. So by default, we are going to enable the allowing the traffic from VNet 100 to VNet 200. Okay, what is traffic forwarding? We will discuss with the third-party firewall. Okay, so we need to use that particular option when you deploy the third-party firewalls. So that time only we will discuss that option. Now again, there is a one more option, virtual network gateway. Again, during the gateway, we will use that option and we will understand why we need that particular option. So in today's lab, just you need to focus on a first option where we need to allow the traffic from VNet 100 to VNet 200. Okay. Now again, Microsoft is asking the one more peering name for your second connection. So this is the VNet 100 to 200. Now again, this is the reverse. VNet 200 to VNet 100. VNet 100. Okay. Now subscription, same subscription, and now Microsoft is asking the remote network. So I'm going to initiate the connection from VNet 100. So I need to select here VNet 200. 200. Again, you're allowing the traffic from 200 to 100. Those two options we will discuss later. Add. See, two connections are getting created now.
Yogesh, if we have a 3 VNet connection, then
yes. What is the question?
If we have a 3 VNet connection, suppose, and we want this VNet pairing in 3 VNet connections.
Yes, it's a very simple. Let me explain into the diagram. So you have 3 connections, right? Let me. Okay. So your three VNets, VNet 1, VNet 2, VNet 3. So you need to create a peering between, see, VNet 1, VNet 2, VNet 3. And now just take an example scenario like you do not have any firewall concept. Okay. So you need to create a connection. Okay. VNet 1 to VNet 2. Then you need to create a one more connection VNet 1 to VNet 3. You need to create a connection VNet 2 to VNet 1 and VNet 2 to VNet 3. VNet 2 VNet 3. Sorry, this is VNet 3. VNet 3. Okay. So VNet 3 to VNet 2 and VNet 3 to VNet 1. VNet 3 to VNet 1. VNet 1. Now it's clear? Any question till?
No.
Okay. Now let's go into our portal. See, we have initiated the VNet peering connection from this VNet 100. So the connection is getting created VNet 100 to VNet 200. Now let's go into the another VNet and let's go into the peering connection. See, VNet 200 to VNet 100 connection also getting created. And now let's go into the server. See, now we are able to ping. So earlier it was not pinging. So any question till? We can take the RDP, MSTSC, 192.168.2.4. We can take the RDP as well. Any question till? Any doubt?
One way. I just want one way side. Is it possible?
So yeah, one way. Yeah, see, by default, Microsoft is not supporting with the one way. If you wanted to configure one way, then you need to create a peering first and then take the help of network security group and allow the one way traffic. Okay.
Yogesh,
Yeah.
so far in all scenarios, I observe that we will be having two NSG, correct? At
Right.
NSG level and at a subnet level.
Exactly.
So now you just answered like you will have to configure uh, um, what did you say, like the one side traffic.
Right.
So we'll have to do it in the subnet level only, correct?
Subnet level only. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Any question till? Any doubt? Any question? Okay. So we'll stop here, and next week we'll try to cover a firewall. So you do all the labs which we have discussed. After 30 minutes, I will upload the video as well. You can go through the video, and with the help of the video, you can perform all the labs. It's a very important lab, okay, which we have discussed today. Any question till? Any doubt? Any question?
We have lecture tomorrow or
Tomorrow we do not have. Okay, tomorrow we do not have. From next week